There we go. Okay, so in MAPublisher 10.2, we added the ability to simplify data. And when we've added this, we had to add it because Adobe Illustrator has a limitation on how many points per path for their pieces of art. So the limitation is 32,000 points per path. And obviously, if you have more points on your path than 32,000, Illustrator is going to have to simplify it. So in 10.2, we've added some simplification options. You can see here the default. I'll just point out that maintain topology is the default. So if you pick default or maintain topology, there's no difference there. Legacy is the old way Illustrator used to simplify the data. And then ignore topology is sort of our in-between method of legacy and maintain topology. So legacy uses an algorithm that Adobe came up with years ago. It's not a cartographic algorithm, whereas maintain topology and ignore topology use the Douglas Puker method, which was developed for cartographic purposes. The only difference between ignore topology and maintain topology is, you can probably guess, is that one does not consider shared borders, and maintain topology does try to maintain those shared borders. Okay, so for the maintain topology, or the default option, lines with more than 32,000 paths will be broken up into compound paths. Therefore, you're not losing any data. It maintains that dense data integrity that your source data has. However, for areas, it is possible to split them into compound paths just like you would for the lines. However, it's not suggested, especially if you're going to be applying a fill to your data, because it can end up with some weird results, especially when you're trying to fill in your simplified data. So for the, like I said, I'll just reiterate, for the line data, we split into compound paths, but you do have the options to simplify it yourself. You can specify custom settings. However, for areas, we will reduce the vertex limit to under 32,000. Okay, and so sometimes the simplification can take quite a while. I'm not going to have you sit through that. It's quite a long process sometimes. However, I just want to show you a visual example of what it can look like before and after simplifying your data. So you just have to bear with me. Obviously, I can't get a data set that is greater than 32,000 points into MAPublisher or into Illustrator. So I've sort of made up this mock-up example. You'll just have to use your imagination that it's greater than 32,000. So using the old legacy format, if I was to simplify my data, you can see that I'm losing quite a bit of my original data set, and my line becomes a little bit jagged. However, with our new simplification method, I keep my original data, whatever my total was greater than 32,000. It's made a compound path, and it's treated no differently than say a normal path. It's just split into two parts. For areas, this one's a little more interesting. You can see here I have a complex example of the border between Iowa and Illinois. And this is, again, a simplified example, no pun intended. If I have my areas with greater than 32,000 points, and I use the old legacy format, you can see because it doesn't maintain topology, I end up with areas of overlap or gaps in my data. But if I then use the new maintain topology simplification method, I end up with a nice shared border between my vertices. So that's part of the reason why we have introduced these simplification methods. Just in the past couple of weeks alone, we've gotten some support cases of people, saying, "Oh, it takes a long time to import my data." We're trying to help give you the most accurate data possible. However, if you're working at a scale that you don't require that accuracy, you can always switch back to the legacy import simplification.